Hello everyone, it's DJ here. Welcome to another episode of the RC Retirement YouTube channel or podcast if you're listening to me in podcast land. This week I'm going to poke fun at a group that has become my favorite but playful punching bag as of late. While I am going to ridicule this group, I'm not trying to be vicious. Please let me say that up front. Don't take anything I say as being offensive. I'm simply pointing out that from my perspective as a retirement services officer, I see these certain things going on. Now, this explanation is going to be a bit lengthy, and there will be a great many numbers involved, so please bear with me. I'll make it as easy as I can, and of course I will try to put numbers on the screen and provide numbers in the article on this topic that we'll post on Friday. So if you're listening to this in podcast land or just want something in writing to show what I am describing, then it will be available there. So this group of people that I'm going to bash a little bit, that's kind of a harsh word, but that's how some people might take it. This group of people are the Physical Evaluation Board Liaison Officers, or PEBLOs, and just for brevity, I'm going to use the acronym PEBLO throughout the rest of this episode. Otherwise, this could get quite long. It will be anyway, but it will be that much more. So these people are the guides, the pathfinders for service members who are going through the Integrated Disability Evaluation System. This is for all services. PEBLOs are in all services. And as service members go through this maze, they have their PEBLOs to help them sort things out. For the most part, PEBLOs are a great asset to the service member, but I see a little bit of misleading, of misinformation going on, and that's partly what I'm going to describe here. The downside that I am talking about is the information that they provide is not always accurate when it pertains to members of the reserve component. I've said in previous episodes many times that I'm not insulting them, but I've also said that they tend to have an active duty-centric mindset. So what they're saying tends to be what applies to an active duty service member and not so much from a reservist point of view. Now, some of this misinformation, I have to admit, might be on the part of the service member. You are getting a lot of information thrown at you all at once. So it's quite possible that some facts slip out, or some facts are remembered slightly differently than how they were actually presented to you. I'm not trying to bash you, the service member, either. Just trying to look at this from all sides. So again, this is how I receive the information from service members and the problem I see with it. So I'm going to try to give both sides the benefit of the doubt that they deserve. But it is still left to people like me and people like you, RSOs out there, you retirement services officers, who have to clean up the mess. So if we know this sort of thing is happening, we can expect it and be prepared for that eventuality. So this week, I'm going to focus specifically on the pay estimates that service members receive and how those tend to differ from what actually occurs. So in this instance, I believe the problem is one of training. I've said that before. I'm of the opinion, warning, danger, Will Robinson, opinion here. I am of the opinion that PEBLOs receive training on how things work, again, from an active duty side of things. Things are a little different for we reservists. In fact, the term I like to use from The Wizard of Oz is We reservists are a horse of a different color. So let's look at it from that standpoint, and that standpoint only as we go through this. So on its face, a slight difference in a retired pay estimate or a VA compensation estimate might not seem like it's too bad. In fact, it typically seems to be an underestimate. Is that really a bad thing if you're expecting one amount and it turns out to be higher? Not necessarily. But the information you receive influences the decisions you make. And that is really the major point of this whole episode. You've got to have the right information in order to make the right decisions. So, if we can at least get the right information into the service members' heads, they can know specifically what to do. And you'll see my point as we go through this. This is actually a rather involved topic, at least the case that I'm going to describe. It led to several improper decisions on the part of the service member, and I'm currently in the state of having to help that member along in getting things squared away and making all the right decisions from here on out. So, again, this is a matter of training typically, and it can be resolved. It's just a problem at the moment. Now, when I do calculations using military base pay, I am just going to use the current rate of pay. I'm not going to try to go into high 3 calculations and things like that. If you really want to know how retired pay works, be it final pay or high 3, you can look at my episode of final pay versus high 3 pay. And, excuse me. Also, all of the numbers I'm going to present here are going to be in 2017 dollars. Alright, now I wrote an article for this. I'm going to use it as my speaking points for this particular episode. So, at least in video land, if you see me looking down, I'm just referencing what I wrote and trying to make sure that I'm saying everything correctly. I don't want to mess up by ad-libbing and saying the wrong thing. So please forgive me when I tend to glance down at my monitor. Alright, let's proceed. Okay, so when an Army PEBLO is counseling a soldier about how much he may receive in disability retirement, the calculations are documented, or should be documented, on Department of the Army Form, DA Form 5892. The title of the form is PEBLO Estimated Disability Compensation Worksheet. The version of this form I'm going to show you as an example is the December 2008 edition. I believe PEBLOs are still using this version rather than the newer one, which came out last year, due to some design flaws in that new version. The January 2017 version was supposed to automate many of those calculations, but the programming script in the background was deficient. And if you play around with it, it doesn't take long to see where some of those errors are. So even though the 2017 version was supposed to supplant the 2008 edition, I think PEBLOs are still using the older one in an attempt to get a more accurate number for their service members. And kudos to them for that. So we still have a problem with the numbers that are actually being used in those calculations. Part of the form is comparing the member's pay for a length of service retirement as if they were already eligible for one, and comparing that to the disability retirement amount. I'll explain. So retired or reserve retired pay is based on the number of retirement points the member has. The PEBLO has to convert those points into equivalent active duty years for the purposes of this form. To do this, the PEBLO divides the total retirement points by 360. And I'll show you on the screen below. And again, for those of you in podcast land, please look at the article so you can see all the numbers. It's very difficult to stay with a conversation in audio form when you have a bunch of numbers. So let's assume that the member has 2,310 retirement points. If we divide 2,310 by 360, we get I'm going to go out to 5 decimal places, so forgive me. We get 6.50278. Alright, so now we're going to subtract the number of whole years from 2,310. And that leaves us 150 points remaining. If we then divide 150 by 30, we have the number of months of equivalent active duty. So, we now have 6 years, 5 months of equivalent active duty service for this member. The PEBLO would then take the 6-year portion of that number and multiply it by 2.5%. That's the current retirement formula or pension formula for service members who are not under the blended retirement system, which is pretty much everyone right now. So that gives them a percentage of base pay for retirement purposes. 6 times 2.5% equals 15%. The PEBLO then divides the 5-month portion by 12 and multiplies that by 2.5%. So 5 divided by 12, which is just getting a partial year, 5 divided by 12 equals 0.41667. Multiply that by 2.5%, and you get 1.04167. I know it's getting complicated already. So add those two numbers together, 15% plus the 1% with the decimal. And we now have 16.04167%. That is the percentage of retired pay that the service member would have as retired pay if that member could get a length of service retirement right now. Alright, so we also know 6.5 years. The PEBLO also looks at the military pay scale to get the amount of active duty base pay. And this is where we run into our first calculating problem. In this case, the member had 12 years of actual service, but PEBLO is calculating everything as if it were 6 years of service. You can see the difference you can see what kind of difference this has when you look at a military pay scale. So let's look at Sergeant Willis, who is an E5, and look at the pay amounts for both the 6-year of service mark and the 12-year of service mark. So with 6 years of service, the base pay in 2017 was $2,856.60 per month. And at the 12th year of service, it is $3,232.80 per month. So as you can see, there is a $376.20 per month difference in the two rates of pay. The PEBLO is using the lesser amount of base pay. And I'm going to show an excerpt of the DA Form 2892 showing the PEBLO's calculations. Oh goody, I get to record this part again. Turns out that for some reason the video for this section did not save properly on the camera, so it was unavailable to edit and add to this episode. So, yay, I get to do it again. Alright, so as I was saying, we've got some calculations for the PEBLO to do. on this section of the DA 2892. The PEBLO takes $2,856.60 and multiplies that by 16.04167%. That works out to $458.24 per month. Now, this $458 is the amount of reserve retired pay if you calculated it based on the 6-year rate of pay for the E5. The PEBLO should actually have used the 12-year of service rate of pay, which is $3,232.80 per month. So if we multiply that rate of pay by the percentage I mentioned earlier, we get $518.59 per month. The difference between those two calculations is $60.35. And I know what you're thinking. You're wondering if a $60 difference in retired pay is enough to even complain. Is that enough to really get all hot and bothered? Well, think of it this way. This is an E5 with a relatively low amount of retirement points. Some are higher, some are lower, but nowadays 2,310 is relatively low for the population that we typically see. So imagine how these numbers can change for a higher pay grade or a higher retirement points total. So now let's look at the disability rate of pay estimate. Sergeant Willis's Army disability rating is 30%. So if PEBLO takes what she took in this case, $2,856.60 per month as base pay, and multiplied that by 30%, she ended up with a retired pay estimate, disability retired pay estimate of $856.98 per month. So again, we have a PEBLO using the 6-year rate of pay. How would it look if we use the correct pay rate? So $3,232.80 times 30% equals $969.84. The difference between these two estimates is $112.86 per month. So you see already, we've got a 100-point difference or $100 difference in the amount of retired pay estimate. The numbers are growing already. This is for a simple case, a low-ranking case. So again, imagine if the point totals were higher or a higher pay grade. The differences can skyrocket at that point. But that's not the worst part. I'm getting to that. So in the remarks section of the DA 2892, the PEBLO shows the amount of VA compensation that Sergeant Willis is expected to receive. Sergeant Willis has a 40% VA rating. That works out to $838.64 per month. As I've said in the past, VA compensation is not taxable. Military retired pay is taxable. So the PEBLO often tells the service member to waive, use air quotes there, waive one or the other type of pay. The reason the PEBLO does this is one understanding of federal law, which says that you cannot receive two types of pay for the same service. However, the way the law actually reads and the way the military pay centers actually implement that law is quite different from what the PEBLOs are saying. Military pay centers, like the Defense Finance and Accounting Service, or DFAS, will offset dollar for dollar any military retired pay the member receives for any amount of VA compensation the member receives. So if the military pay is higher than the VA compensation, which in the case of disability retirements is quite common, then the service member will receive whatever amount of retired pay is left after the offset. Here's an example. Let's assume we've got a member who is receiving $1,200 in military retirement and $1,000 in VA compensation. The pay center will offset the military pay like this: $1,200 minus $1,000. That leaves us with $200 in military pay left over. The service member will receive the remaining $200 and the full amount of VA compensation. PEBLOs are telling members they can only have one or the other, like the PEBLO did for Sergeant Willis, who chose VA compensation in lieu of military pay. This is incorrect, and it causes another problem. So those of you in the retirement services community can already guess where I'm going with this. If you take one type of pay and not the other, then you might be disqualifying yourself from applying for combat-related special compensation, or CRSC. And if you want more information on CRSC, then you can look at my video. Combat-related special compensation is not the same as concurrent receipt. You can get more information on it there. I'm not going to go into all the specifics that I covered in that video, but I'll just give some of the basics to make this episode understandable. So, I already mentioned you have to have an offset in military retirement. You also need to have a combat-related disability and a minimum 10% VA rating. Have all three of those, you can apply for combat-related special compensation. When PEBLOs are telling service members that they can apply for CRSC, they are not mentioning the requirement for an offset to military retired pay. They advise the member to take one or the other. This automatically disqualifies the service member from CRSC. If the member makes an application to his branch of service for CRSC and does not have military pay being offset by VA compensation, that application will be rejected right away. This is because of a lack of proper counseling, as I've said before. So now we've got a frustrated service member who was told one thing: you're eligible for CRSC, and now has a different answer from the military pay center: you're not eligible. The member, either due to a lack of understanding from that previous improper counseling or just frustration, will often give up. And very likely they're going to go around saying, the military screwed me because they said one thing and then did another. I have seen that many times in the last several years, and every single time it was because the member was told one thing and they got a different answer. And it always went back to taking one type of pay over another instead of opting for both and accepting an offset. Now, again, PEBLOs aren't trying to do the wrong thing for the service members. They think they're doing the right thing. In fact, everything they're saying, just about everything they're saying, would be correct if they were talking to an active duty service member. But they're not. As I said earlier, reservists are a horse of a different color. Even the best intentions of a PEBLO, if they don't have proper training to add to those intentions, will lead a reservist astray. All right. Now I'm going to talk to you service members out there. Not the RSOs, mostly not the retired people, but you people who are currently going through medical boards or have just recently gone through them. If that applies to you, I recommend you take all of your information and actually sit down with a retirement services officer, one who specializes in reserve matters, and talk with them. Get some information from them. I'm not trying to bash the active duty RSOs, the people who are on active duty installations. They're great people. I know many of them. But again, they tend to be active duty centric in their training, their experience, and their mindset. So it's not always the case that you get the right information from a reserve standpoint from these people. You might, but I think it would be better if you were to find a reserve RSO and talk to that person. Now, it's kind of hard sometimes to find a reservist or a reserve RSO, so I'm going to put in the references section of this episode contact information for Army Reserve and Army National Guard RSOs across the country. In the case of National Guard, I'm going to include a link to my website, which will have states and phone numbers. In the case of Army Reserve, I will actually post it in the reserve section. There is a link for the National Guard Retirement Services officers on the My Army Benefits page, but for some reason that site has been down for the last month or two. So even though I will post that link in the references section, it's a dead link at the moment. That's why I'm going to also direct you to my webpage for additional information. Wow, that's a heck of a lot of information for 1 week. And that was just scratching the surface of this issue. I'm sure you can tell. But I'm going to let it be for now. The gist is get a second opinion, especially if you've had any numbers put in front of you. Get advice from more than one source. All right, now we're talking to everybody again. If you know someone who's going through medical boards or recently went through them, please share this information with them. Share this episode. Show them the article that posts on Friday. Let them have all this information and figure out if there's something they need to do. As I say so many times, you can't make the right decision without the right knowledge. So let's put that knowledge in people's heads. All right, on a happier note, if you like this episode, please be sure to hit the like button on YouTube. If you have not subscribed, then you can click the RC Retirement logo on the bottom left of the screen and subscribe to this channel. If you are listening in podcast form, please be sure to subscribe on that venue. You can find me on iTunes and Stitcher. Also, if you're on one of those platforms, please write a 1 or 2 sentence review of the podcast and let people know what you think. So, that's it for this week. I appreciate you being here. Thank you for being part of this audience. As always, thank you for your service. Have a wonderful day.
If you liked what you heard on today's episode, then please go below and give it a thumbs up, and be sure to subscribe to this channel. Also, please let other people know about this channel and the information it can provide for them. If you have questions or comments, then have no qualms about posting them in the comments section below. Please remember the RC Retirement YouTube channel and the RC Retirement website are not recognized or endorsed by the Department of Defense, the Department of Veterans Affairs, or any other government agency. The information presented in these resources are for entertainment and informational purposes only. Also, the content of either of these resources should not be considered financial or legal advice. Please consult with your own legal counsel, accountant, and financial planner before making any decisions based on what you have learned here. As always, thank you for watching the RC Retirement YouTube channel.